Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Oh, I just wanted to mention to everyone, if you do not want to be captured on camera in the recording, I invite you to go ahead and shut your camera off, because once we have you in the recording, I'm sorry, there's an ambulance driving by my house. Once we have you in the recording, we can't necessarily edit only you out. Okay, so let's get started. We're here. Victor, I'm sorry, I forgot your last name.
Silva.
Silva, I'm so sorry. And I wrote it down and I can't find the piece of paper. So we're here with Mr. Victor Silva from URI to help us understand the transfer process for the Education, Government, and Human Services path here at CCRI. So basically, this is information about what you'll need to know to go on to URI. And he's very helpful. He was with a session. He led a session for us earlier this morning in another pathway. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Victor.
Thank you so much, Dan and Jess. I really appreciate you having me on and being able to speak to your students. I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, could you just make me a co-host?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
Why won't it allow me to do this right now? Make co-host. There we go. I'm so sorry. All right, you're in now. I'm sorry.
You are fine. So here we go. So for the folks that are viewing this either live or in a recording, I'm going to be discussing the process, the transfer process, and what that means for you when you are ready to apply potentially to the University of Rhode Island. We have a great relationship with the Community College of Rhode Island as a family institution, and as far as how we accept credits and the transition and your preparedness for the programs that we offer, it's definitely a great situation to be in. Just with the collaboration, the amount of support that you would have to move on to your next step here. I'm happy to, at any point, and I think that's one thing I like to stress, even though I'll be speaking about the transfer process in general terms, I think the transfer process is unique to, each student. So, it's not gonna be the same for me as it would be for Jan, or for you, Evelyn, or for Jess. It could be very well, very different, but kind of following the same guidelines. And then at any point, if I can point you in the right direction for program-specific information, obviously I have a working knowledge of every single program, but if we can get you more information, happy to do that, connect you with departments. But for today's presentation, or this session, you'll be looking at education, government, human services programs, and kind of how to understand where they're kind of packaged here at the university and where you can find more information about them. So I think the best guide that we can use is actually our website here. And when you go to uri.edu, so www.uri.edu, from your main page here, I'd have you click on admission. And what I'm essentially going to be taking you to is the transfer one-stop kind of one-stop shop for information. So then you would go to undergraduate admission. And then the last click for now would be under transfer students. So this is all the information that we feel is important to share for transfer students about the application process, a checklist, what you should be thinking about before you apply and after you apply, and of course a link to the application. So a lot of good information here, an opportunity to schedule a meeting with me at the bottom of the page. I'll just kind of highlight that quickly, and our contact information. But for those programs that we're going to be speaking about today, they're going to follow our general transfer policy. And our general transfer policy, or our admissions process, is pretty straightforward for transfer students. We give you an idea of what we're looking for, based on total credits and then GPA, and how you'd be, or potentially how you'd be considered for admission to university. So when you're on this main page, when you scroll down, I first want people to be aware of our deadlines that we have. So for our spring semester every year, it's typically January 10th. And then we have our fall semester coming up. That deadline is July 27th, excuse me. So kind of late, or at least people think so, or they get confused and, looking at the freshman incoming first year student language. So there is some more flexibility again in timing. Some students might be waiting for final grades of their last semester, or for the graduation of post, for them to, have that be noted on a transcript. So we do try to be as flexible as possible for students considering the fall for admission. So general rule of thumb for transfer, and then I'm going to go into specifics. It's first going to start off with the common application. So you do have to complete our transfer version of the common application. You would get there by clicking on that picture of the folks scuba diving. It'll link it over here to the other picture And this will take you to our Common App section. So you would actually click on the apply for transfer and then complete the application, complete your profile for the Common App, and answer the URI specific questions. Now, second question ends up being, Victor, what do I actually have to submit to be considered for admission? And that's a great question. So when I'm actually going to scroll up here above where we were, we have this section here with the 3 students that says general transfer requirements. So again, for those programs, they don't fall within the competitive program, so they don't have additional prerequisites or requirements. They're going to generally follow this process here. So if you have attempted fewer than 24 credits, you would need a minimum of 2.8 on a 4.0 scale, and then be in good standing, and then meet the first year requirements. So we do have to look back a little bit more at your high school transcript when you submit that. So that would be the application, high school transcript, and CCRI transcript, and transcripts from any other college or university you may have attended. If you have at least 24 credits, but not an associate's degree, the GPA minimum drops down to a 2.5, and you'd still have to complete or submit the common application, high school transcripts, and your college transcripts. And then the last one here, if you have an associate's degree or higher, then the requirement drops to a 2.4, and you do not have to submit the high school transcripts or the high school documents. So at any point, students ask, do I need SAT scores? No, you don't need SAT scores. We don't require letters of recommendation, and we also don't require an essay. But I like to say that your application is a digital version of who you are, right? So if you have things you want to highlight in a resume or letters of recommendation, some projects you've been working on outside of the classroom experience you want to share, definitely include it as part of the review, because I will read everything that goes into your electronic file, and that helps helps paint a pretty good picture of who you are as a person. So again, kind of nuts and bolts for those that joined. I was on our page here for our transfer requirements from our main admissions page. So if you have any questions about how that relates to you, again, we could address it at the end of the presentation, or again, if you wanted to schedule an individual meeting with me. So from here, I think the biggest thing when we're talking about, what students are thinking about when they're transferring, first is strength in programming. So understanding that we have your programs that you want to transfer into. Second usually is, how do my credits transfer? And then third, scholarships. So just to kind of bring up the second idea here is just understanding what your credit might look like. So if any search engine, you can type URI TES. This database is also available from your CCRI registrar's website, but for our version of it, it's this first link that comes up here. It says TES Public View Management, but you will see that it says URI in the link at the bottom there. So when you click on that, it's gonna be listed alphabetically. And we're going to go to the Community College of Rhode Island to get an understanding of what I was talking about for the relationship we have between Community College of Rhode Island and the University of Rhode Island. So what we've done is essentially evaluate every single course in the CCRI course catalog and either found an equivalent for ours or decided that it doesn't transfer over to one of our classes. But this allows you to go through and say, all right, I've taken these courses. How does that actually fit into my degree? When you apply to the university, once you've been accepted, I then send your transcripts over to the academic department to do just that. So they'll actually provide you with a transfer credit evaluation shortly after admission. But prior to acceptance, if you wanted to have a roundabout idea for yourself, you could go through, type in the classes, or just search, alphabetically by the CCRI course number to see what the equivalents are. You can do that. So that's kind of a helpful resource to see, all right, I've taken X amount of credits, how many potentially could transfer over to the university? And then the third topic, kind of going over in the admissions process is the merit scholarships. So scholarships at the point of admission. We do offer them for transfer students. You don't have to submit supplemental documents or another application. At the same time I review a student's file for potential admission, I also review it for potential merit awards. So while I'm doing that, if eligible, I would award a scholarship. So the minimum criteria for a scholarship would be a 3.3 GPA with a minimum of 24 credits for a merit scholarship from admission. We also offer Phi Theta Kappa scholarships. So depending upon where you are in your path here at CCRI, if you're performing very well and you've received invitations to become a Phi Theta Kappa member, PTK, you might have seen it. I definitely encourage it because it's one of the highest amounts a transfer student can get. when transferring to the University of Rhode Island. And if you're curious about whether or not you potentially could qualify, you can do a little bit more research and reach out to the Phi Theta Kappa reps on CCRI's campus, the community, and then see what it would take to potentially join if you're of interest. But I believe a minimum is 3.5 to be considered potentially, but it's a 2-year honor society essentially for students, and it's a national honor society as well. So those are kind of the main talking points when it comes to admission, but now, exploring your specific majors of interest. I try as best as possible to have the website be a resource and make it a little bit more manageable and navigable for you. So when you're back at our homepage here at uri.edu, I'd recommend you click at academics, and then from academics, undergraduate, the programs that we'd be looking to, because the range here in your pathways for us, we have different colleges at the university or different schools. So we have a college of business, we have a college of environment and life sciences, college of nursing, college of pharmacy, college of engineering, and then we have our school of professional studies and education, which if you're interested in education programs, those exist within the school of professional studies and education. And you can use this list alphabetically to get an idea of, what we offer in general, or you could type at the top. But if I'm just scrolling down, I'll just use, we go with the first one, early childhood education, just for my example, and I'll touch on a few. All majors here are listed the same way. So you'll get the same kind of information breakdown. So talking a little bit about what the program's are actually for, but then I think some really helpful information underneath. So if you've been going through a program or a pathway and you haven't really started taking education type courses yet, but you're interested in early childhood, you could click on course descriptions, and this will pull up the classes that fall within our School of Education. So you can see the topics that you would discuss and be able to get a little bit more information by looking at them through the course catalog. So kind of need to explore your major a little bit more and see what you'll dive into with a little bit more detail. But then also too, the department website, I think has great information because it actually takes you to that department. And one of the greatest things here, I think, is the people section. And you get to see who your faculty are, who's teaching in those particular courses, what their backgrounds are. So when you click on one of them, you can see, first off, their education, their bio, if they've published any specific documents or been a part of any specific research programs. So you get a little bit more about the feel of who you're learning from, and that might resonate with you and say, wow, this person's done exactly what I want to do. And what a great opportunity to build your professional network, to connect with this person and say, okay, they've done it. Maybe I can pick their brain to see how I can go about doing it and how they did it, how much education I need after this, or where do they recommend getting started? If they could do something differently in their career, how would they do it? So again, nice personal touch here so that you can connect and have that relationship potentially and see how these folks have gone about their career and what they would advise, to folks getting started. And then to backtrack to our academics again, when we're talking about government potentially, and those folks interested in that, we have an international studies and diplomacy program. We have a political science program. So depending upon where you're thinking, it might not even necessarily have been those topics right from the get-go, right? But you could explore that a little bit more and say, okay, Victor, what is, if I can remember my alphabet here, right? What is the International Studies and Diplomacy Program? Again, clicking it, get a little bit more information, but it's essentially a dual major program with international studies and a language for folks that are interested in foreign service, diplomacy, international non-governmental organizations. So a variety of options if that's where you see yourself going, or if you want more of a domestic perspective, looking at our political science program, or even our nonprofit administration program. And that's what exists within our our School of Professional Studies and Education, the Providence campus. And then one more thing I wanted to touch on would be the human services side of things. So we have a really interesting major that some students might not recognize by name, but might satisfy some of those things that you're looking to do if you're interested in that field. And that's human development and family science. And they have a variety of focuses here. But in their concentrations and what they're preparing you for, you'll see here, it's for counseling, social services, child and family development, health and aging services. And you can do the same thing and take a look at the curriculum, take a look at the courses that they offer. But again, you'll see in here, within those courses, they'll be talking about mental health, counseling, gerontology, clinical social work, early intervention, family policy, child development, psychology, a lot of different things brought under, you know, a name that might not necessarily have clicked with you to say that, oh, this is probably what I would like to do, you know, but this is what they call it at the University of Rhode Island. So again, a great option here. So the biggest thing in, you know, the sake of time and potentially for answering questions, you know, is using this site as a resource, but also using the people that you have access to. And, you know, the first one would be me, you know, when you're thinking about transferring. And what I want to go back to, and I'll put it in the chat, but also for folks that are listening, you can definitely reach out to me. My email address is vsilva. So my first name is Victor. My last name is Silva, S-I-L-V-A. So the email vsilva, V-S-I-L-V-A @uri.edu. Also can access that information from the transfer webpage that we you know, first started with. If you scroll all the way down, you can see the general transfer information that still comes to me, but you can click on the right for the Meet Your Counselor. And then from there, when you pull up transfer, I'm going to be the face looking at you from that picture, and you can actually have access to scheduling a meeting with me, look at my calendar and see what availability might be there. If something doesn't line up for your schedule, just send me an email and say, Victor, you know, I'd really like to have a conversation, and I can obviously move some things in my schedule to accommodate that as best as possible. But that's what I had planned on discussing with you folks for today. So if anyone has any questions or, you know, wants to just bring something up, feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat and I'll gladly answer. And thank you again.
Victor, thank you so much. That was, again, very informative and thorough.
Like, try to get it all in. You know?
Oh, yeah, understandable. I again want to invite the students, if they have any questions at all, to type, you know, you can type them in the chat, you can unmute your microphone and go ahead and ask Victor any questions you might have. All right, what I'm gonna do then is share my screen. Okay, well, if no one has any questions. Okay, then I need to make it big. Okay, well, if no one has any questions, I want to thank everyone for attending, for coming out to get some to get more information about the transfer process for URI and the requirements. Again, if you have any questions at all, you have contact information. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you want to get more information about Pathdays or guided pathways in general, you can go to www.ccri.edu/pathways/Pathdays. We're going to have the recordings of the sessions from earlier today and from previous Pathdays up and available for you all, where you will see a friendly face. You'll see Victor again. Also, I wanted to promote Career Services is having a virtual job fair, which is going to be hosted on Handshake. So if you're interested in that, it's on April 14th from 1 to 4 p.m. And here's the link for it. It will also be available at Career Services. So you can go there to get more information about that. So I want to thank you all for coming out. And that's
Jenna, we actually do have a question in the chat.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Either from the chat or from one of our attendees. You go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like. Sorry. Or go ahead and type it in the chat.
I saw it in the chat. Okay. I have a quick question. Yes. Okay. I'm so sorry. I didn't have my chat window up. Okay, Evelyn. Okay, that's fine.
And I'm sure they're just typing, so.
Yeah.
Bear with.
I jumped too quickly.
Okay, the question is, if I am in early ed and want to transfer to URI and specialize in special ed, do I need to switch my major to elementary ed? I'm in the JAA program. Thanks. Oh, great. And we had this question a little earlier today, Victor. And I let them know that you would either be able to answer this question or direct them to the right person at URI who could.
Sure. So with that being said, there are folks that work with the JA students on our end, and it does fall outside of my purview, but I can still at least direct you there. So I will say that I'm just going to give you the email address for those folks if you do want to ask the specific question to them. If you're in a transition plan, you have to stay in that transition plan. So if you're interested in a different major that's outside of what you would be, potentially pursuing, then you could still potentially transfer to the university, but you wouldn't fulfill your JAA benefits, or you wouldn't be eligible for them because you're switching ideas or switching plans. Not necessarily specific to you, but with that being said, we had students. I'm going to give an example. I have a student that wanted to go through maybe a psych path, and psych is all right. I'll send you that, but they were interested in psych, but also wanted neuroscience. They can't do both. They can't switch to keep their psych benefits and their benefits for JA through psych, because it's kind of a back-ended way of doing things and not following the specific plans. But with, so what's that? I'm just reading the chat. So let me get you the information there for the special ed. 1 second. Bear with me.
So while Victor looks that up, speaking from someone point of view who's been a K-12 teacher, I can say that certifications do tend to split at a grade level, but that doesn't mean it means you're going to be prepared to teach all of those grade levels within that range, but it doesn't mean you will have to. Certainly that is something you discuss and arrange with your placement as well, or your employer. But so I would imagine that if you got a certification that went up to grade 5, using or only wanting to do up to grade 2 would be something that it would still be possible for you depending on your employer. And after you get that information, Victor, we have our next question as well.
Sure thing. So I'm going to send you here for that student that asked the question, just so you have the information there. But I think, in the elementary ed program as it exists within the undergraduate, it does highlight, grades 1 through 6, right? The opportunity to then branch out into the special education curriculum is really at the master's level from my understanding, and I can send you some information for that too, so you can take a peek. I'm in a few different things trying to get to get you the correct links, and then I'll get right to the next question. All right, so from Evelyn, does foreign languages connect to government, and how can I get into the JA program? So can I switch my major to general studies to foreign language major when I transfer to URI? So we have a few options for that depending upon what you want to do, Evelyn, and that's a great question. So you could actually branch out in a few different ways. So for instance, I brought up that international studies and diplomacy program that, couples 2 majors, an international studies program, international relations program, with a specific major. You could major in your particular language, if you wanted to too, because we have that breadth in programming for different languages. So if you actually want that to be your primary, then you could double major in something else. You could take a minor in something else. We also have a global studies major, and we also have a global business major. So when you're thinking about that and how you couple it with your career goals, there's a lot of different options. So for JAA, you have to meet with your JAA advisor at CCRI, and you do what's called, or prepare what's called, an intent to enroll, and you're following a transition plan. So a very specific list of courses to then transfer over to either the University of Rhode Island or Rhode Island College. You do have to have less than 30 credits to be eligible for JAA. So if you fall outside of that, there might be an issue, and you can still go through, I say an issue, it's just to enroll in the JA program, not necessarily to transfer. You could still potentially transfer. So when you're at CCRI, if you're in general studies, you don't technically have to change for anything at CCRI. You could stay general studies, but then choose your foreign language major or your internationally focused major, you know, once you apply to the university and you start here. So you could pick that major when you go through the application process with us. I hope that answered your question.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay.